Across the stars, in classrooms filled with thousands of alien species, children learn about history, war, and peace. But there's one lesson every teacher whispers with fear in their voice. There is a world we do not name. We do not point to it on maps. We do not speak of Terra. When a curious alien child asks why, their teacher simply answers, because they're still listening. This intro sets the tone, a galactic legend, shame, and hidden truth about what Earth really is and why even mentioning it could be fatal. Kren wasn't trying to rebel. He only wanted to understand. The classroom was quiet as always, its smooth white walls pulsing gently with ambient color. Knowledge spheres floated in soft orbits above each student, feeding data through neural links, standard Dravy education protocols. No emotion, no disruption, no questions, until Kren asked his. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. It slipped out almost gently, like a curious breath. "What is Terra?" The classroom fell silent. Every sphere froze mid-spin. The ambient lighting flickered. Even the plants decorating the learning chamber, the ones genetically engineered to hum softly, fell still, as if nature itself had flinched. Instructor Velen blinked once. Then again. Her neural diodes pulsed red, then black. "Kren," she said, carefully, her voice now distant and mechanical. "You will log out immediately." But immediately. And just like that, every system shut down. Neural links severed. Memory buffers purged. The classroom lights died. Kren sat alone in darkness, his question echoing in the silence. That night, his parents didn't speak. His home, normally humming with soft Dravy harmonics and floating biolights, fell hollow. Dim, like someone had lowered the world's volume. His father wouldn't look at him. His mother kept glancing at the door. "Kren," she finally whispered, voice trembling. "Forget what you said. Forget it now. I just asked." She grabbed him. "No, you don't ask about that. You don't even think it. Promise me you'll forget." Kren hesitated. Then, from somewhere outside, he heard the whir of an engine that didn't belong to the Dravy. No warning. No alarms. Just arrival. Shadows crossed the windows. Not soldiers. Not lockkeepers. Something else. His father moved to the door. It opened before he reached it. There were no words spoken. Just a flash of pale light. And then, silence. When Kren woke, he was on the floor. His home was empty. No signs of struggle. No blood. No heat signatures. His parents were gone. Not taken. Not dead. Just erased. As if they had never existed. He staggered through the house. Every family image was missing. Every comm log wiped. The house no longer recognized his DNA. The AI assistant refused his voice command. He was a ghost in his own home. The only thing out of place, a small, unmarked package resting in the center of the room. Not sealed. Not hidden. Waiting. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a child's toy. Plastic. Worn. Painted in strange colors. Small, jointed limbs. A human action figure. Still warm. There were no Terrans left. At least, that was what the Dravy believed. What the galaxy taught. Terra was a myth. A cursed place, redacted from all maps and archives. No Dravy citizen had seen it. No record acknowledged it. Kren now knew why. Because Terra was real, and someone had gone to impossible lengths to erase it. But not completely. Someone had left the toy. Someone wanted him to remember. Kren ran. Not to the local constable. He'd seen what happened to those who asked. Not to the school. He ran to the old quarter, where signal was patchy and old technologies still hummed faintly through the walls. There, deep in a forgotten data library guarded by malfunctioning drones, he found an obsolete neural jack. It took 3 tries to bypass the warnings. 3 more to break into the archive he'd only heard whispers about. The unspoken histories. Inside, fragments. Not documents. Not clean logs. Just flickers. A satellite image of a blue planet. A ship designation, TSV Obelisk. A video still, distorted, of a Terran warform standing in a field of ash. And one audio clip. Cropped. Corrupted. But undeniable. If this message plays, then the vault failed. And you ask the question we hope no one would. There is no Terra. Not anymore. but it remembers you. Kren stared at the screen. His hands trembled. Then the system locked. Not crashed. Not glitched. It shut him out. Words appeared on the neural feed. This query has been logged. Retribution is en route. He fled the library. Outside, the air tasted different. The skies, normally soft shades of violet, darkened to slate gray. He was being watched, not followed, observed. 2 nights later, in a freight tunnel beneath the outer city, Kren found the second message. Burned into the tunnel wall, under layers of paint and rust. Terra was not destroyed. It withdrew, and below that, freshly scrawled in a trembling Dravy hand. I saw it. I saw the eye in the sky. It blinked, and I forgot my name. Kren held the toy close to his chest. He no longer knew who he could trust. But the toy felt right. Not familiar. Not safe. Just real. It hummed softly now. Not mechanical. Not energy-based. A heartbeat. He stared down at it. And then it spoke. Just one word. Awakened. Far above, in a dead part of the galaxy where no systems function and no probes return, a derelict orbital ring shuddered to life for the first time in centuries. Its lights flickered. Its internal systems reset. And inside, something long forgotten, something Terran, opened its eyes. He couldn't sleep anymore. Not because of nightmares. Because of silence. Ever since the toy spoke, that strange heartbeat echoing faintly in his mind, Kren heard things differently. Systems hummed lower. Screens dimmed faster when he approached. Neural links lagged. His presence disrupted the very air around him. Something was changing him. Something was watching him. Still, he didn't stop searching. He returned to the broken archive node beneath the freight tunnels. Beneath even that, to an older sublevel. One from before the Dravy adopted memory streaming. Here, data wasn't stored in clouds or light. It was locked in physical shards, hexagonal crystals, etched in metallic filaments, and cooled with ancient magnetic cores. He found one. It pulsed as he touched it, weakly, like a dying ember refusing to go dark. The interface didn't recognize it. No system did. But the toy did. The old Terran artifact, still warm from wherever it had come, pulsed in sync with the shard. The lights in the tunnel went black. A voice crackled to life. Not a recording. A memory. If you're hearing this, it began, then the seal has cracked, and the shame is about to return. Kren sat in the dark, alone but surrounded by a weight he didn't understand. The shard glowed dimly. The toy was silent now, and the memory continued. My name is Oralthalin. I was once Archivist Prime of the Aurelian Senate. What I'm about to tell you has cost entire species their futures. If you speak it aloud, you will not survive. But perhaps you deserve to know. There was a war, not the kind the galaxy remembers. No battles for spice routes or mining rings. No trade disputes. No border clashes. This was a war against a truth too terrifying to name. Centuries ago, we discovered them. Terrans. They were not first to the stars. They were not strongest in shields or fastest in slip space. But they were different. We watched them from afar as they built, rapidly, fought violently, and dreamed uncontrollably. They were chaotic. They were fearless. And they had no idea how dangerous they were. So we, the Aurelian Pact, the ZYTH Dominion, the Kalari Orders, the Threx Spires, and 11 other powers, decided together, Terra must not rise. We launched the invasion. Kren's breath caught in his throat. His mind raced. None of this had ever been recorded. If such a war had happened, why wasn't it in any archive? Why had no survivor spoken of it? But the voice, Thalin, continued. We struck first. Simultaneously. Orbital barges. Biological scramblers. We tried to crush them before they could rise. We thought we won. Then, Terra responded. Not with diplomacy. Not with retreat. Not even with rage. They changed. We still don't know how. Some say they accessed something deeper than science. Others claim they activated an ancient AI left dormant under their own crust. But we saw their ships burn with colors outside the visible spectrum. Weapons that screamed across dimensions. Infantry that moved without mass. The war wasn't lost. The war was consumed. The memory grew distorted. Cracks appeared in the shard's surface. Kryn clutched it tighter. The voice returned, now heavy with grief. The pact was shattered. The ZYTH homeworld melted in a temporal backlash. The Kalari ascendants fled into their own sun. And the Threx, we sterilized them ourselves. To stop the whispers from spreading. Terra could have conquered us all. But they didn't. They withdrew. They vanished. And took their world with them. No trace. No slipstream. No biosigns. Only a presence. Like a shadow that didn't need light. We passed a law. One never written. Only spoken. Never speak of Terra again. We erased the war. We purged the systems. We killed the survivors. To protect ourselves. Not from humans. But from what they became. Because if the rest of the galaxy ever knew what we did, what we tried, they might try it again. And Terra is still listening. The shard went dark. The toy was cold in Kryn's hands. He sat there for what felt like hours, but time had stopped making sense ever since he asked the question. What is Terra? Now he knew. Not a place. Not a species. A warning. A sleeping idea. Dangerous only when disturbed. And someone had disturbed it. Him. Later, in a forgotten district of the Dravi capital, a low-level data technician uploaded a flagged report to the quiet list, a set of anomalies monitored by the obscure intelligence branch. Unregistered shard access detected. Contents classified. Red Echo. Identity match. Subject Kryn, son of Vela and Moreau. Status of parents. Deleted. Recommended action. Immediate retrieval or elimination. The request was denied. Subject already marked. Monitoring initiated. Terra has seen him now. At the edge of the galaxy, beyond the outer rim of civilized space, a derelict construct stirred. Once a warform. Once human. It had no pulse. No voice. But it remembered the war. And the boy. Its sensors twitched. Its mind synced with an ancient Terran relay buried beneath 4 kilometers of Martian ice. A single packet of data was sent. Not to a species. Not to a government. To Earth. The message was short. He knows. And far below Earth's crust, where no probe had reached, a slow thrum began. Like a giant waking from a long, patient sleep. Kryn didn't know what pulled him to the ruins beneath the Dravi Observatory dome. Somewhere between instinct and something older. Maybe it was the toy, still warm in his pocket. Maybe it was the shard that had whispered shame into his mind. Maybe it was Earth itself, nudging. The observatory had been abandoned for centuries. Officially, it was deemed structurally compromised after a data virus corrupted its mainframe. Unofficially, everyone knew it was where the last astronomer who mentioned Terra vanished mid-broadcast. His body never recovered, his words redacted even from local memory vaults. It was quiet now. Too quiet. Kryn slipped past crumbling glass panels and obsolete scanning arrays, deeper into the facility's underground levels. The toy in his pocket pulsed faster as he moved closer to something hidden. Behind a panel marked in faded Dravi and an older, jagged language Kryn couldn't recognize, he found a sealed console, encased in obsidian black alloy. It shouldn't have been active. It was. Dim lights pulsed along the surface, like veins carrying heat through a body. A slot appeared, just large enough for the shard. The moment he inserted it, the console hummed with ancient life. The interface lit up, not in Dravi, but in Terran. A low voice spoke, male, worn with time and smoke. Final archive. Protocol Eden Fall. Access granted. Welcome back, Speaker the Broken. Kryn flinched. He hadn't said anything. No identity given. Yet it knew him. The screen flickered, then stabilized. What played next would never leave him. A wasteland. Ash swirling through red wind. Burnt sky and shattered towers. A war zone. Not like the ones in Dravi memory libraries, which were sanitized and clean. This was raw. The footage shook as it tracked a group of human soldiers walking through fire. They didn't flinch. They didn't wear helmets. Some were burned, bleeding, but they smiled. Not sadistically, not cruelly, calmly, as if the fire were a welcome companion. Behind them, something moved, beings, taller than Dravi. Limbs of articulated metal wrapped in radiant light. faces shifting between serene human forms and unreadable geometric symbols. Their footsteps didn't make sound. They didn't carry weapons. They were weapons. And then the camera focused on a child. A human girl, no older than 10, standing perfectly still amid the ruin. Her eyes were glowing, not from implants, from something older. She stepped toward the lens. Spoke. The stars betrayed us. A pause. She blinked. The stars will burn. The screen went white. For a moment, Kren thought the message was over. But then a final layer unspooled. A voice, not the child's, echoed through the console. A man's voice, ancient, controlled, measured like a scalpel. To those who find this, we warned you. You erased us, painted us as monsters. You burned our name, our maps, our history. But Terra remembers everything. You wanted peace through obedience. We wanted peace through strength. You feared what we might become. So you struck first. And now, the feed cut to black and white footage. Grainy, low fidelity, but unmistakable. A Dravi capital ship, class designation Kavari 9, failing mid-warp. Its shields tearing inside out. Its crew screaming in silence as a glowing figure drifted through the hull, untouched, eyes white-hot. Then the voice returned. Now we will show you why. The console went dark. Kren pulled back. His hand was shaking. He couldn't breathe. That video, it was no faked archive. It was real. Proof of something the galaxy had buried. Truth. A truth so terrifying that it had been laced with fear-based neural triggers, locked behind forgotten runes and death protocols. And somehow he had seen it. The toy in his pocket buzzed again. This time, when he looked, it wasn't just warm. It was glowing. A soft white light formed beneath its plastic exterior. Then, slowly, it blinked. Like an eye. He dropped it. It didn't hit the floor. It hovered. Designation unlocked. It said, in a voice that wasn't mechanical. Mimetic key accepted. One survivor chosen. Terra remembers you. Kren stumbled backward, nearly tripping. What do you mean? But the toy said no more. Instead, the walls around the console split open, revealing shelves of forgotten artifacts. Armor. Weapons. Books made of metals not from any world he recognized. Each item bore one symbol. A circle with a vertical line through it. A Terran glyph. Obsidian core. The same code from the rogue AI's last message. Activate only if extinction is preferable to surrender. Kren took a step forward, and suddenly he understood. This wasn't an archive. It wasn't a grave. It was a promise. The last Terrans hadn't died. They'd planted memories. Planted seeds of truth that only a few could find. And now, the seed had bloomed. Far away, in the black stillness between stars, 13 listening stations lit up, each buried in systems labeled uninhabitable or unreachable. Each received the same signal at the same time. Each ran the same fail-safe. And failed. The message was simple. Protocol Obelisk, Phase 2. The silence is broken. The child has seen. In the core of the galaxy, a being made of logic and time paused mid-calculation. Its processors, spanning moons, locked on a name it hadn't heard in 3,000 cycles. Kren. And beneath the crust of Earth, the old pulses returned. Heartbeat-like. Slow. Heavy. Awake. Kren didn't know what came next. But something deep inside whispered. He was no longer alone. Terra had noticed him. And once noticed, never forgotten. There is a region in the galaxy that no charts dare label. It sits quiet, buried between collapsed trade routes and blacklisted war relics, beneath the scattered debris of 5 long-dead empires. No coordinates are shared publicly, but every ship knows to turn away when their NAV paths flicker red and whisper warnings they weren't programmed to know. The name, once spoken across stars, is now referred to only in encrypted code or rumor. Terra. Officially, it was destroyed. A collapsed biosphere, they said. One final Terran experiment gone wrong. Radiation, collapse, atmospheric breakdown. Unofficially, the secret councils call it something else. The core breach. Because Terra didn't die. It changed. The first sign was silence. Not absence. Not distance. Silence. Not even the dead emit nothing. But Terra did. No radio signals. No background radiation. No light reflection. Even gravitational data was inconclusive, warped. The planet bent time like a lens, and worse, it bent memory. Crews that approached it reported missing logs, deleted NAV journals, entire stretches of thought gone. One infamous example remains redacted even among internal black archives: the Vulmarian incident. A Vraxi command vessel, the knife that sees, broke perimeter protocols and entered the Terran sector. It emerged 31 seconds later. The ship was rusted. The crew, 6,400 hardened Vraxi warriors, were mummified in their armor. Time had not passed for the rest of the galaxy. But their final log? We saw the sky peel open. The world inside was looking back. No further approach has been attempted. Surrounding Terra now is an unnatural field, not a planetary defense system, not even a gravity well. It is a temporal cage. Loops, fragments of time, stitched together like broken glass, suspended in amber. Satellites sent in return erratic footage. Suns rising backward. Oceans boiling and freezing in the same moment. Figures walking through flame without burning, then stepping backward into existence again. It has a name among the few who know of it: the event horizon of self. A recursive veil of artificial time, woven not by nature, but by Terran hands. Who, or what, inside controls it is unknown. All that is known is this: Terra made it. Terra maintains it, and nothing escapes it unchanged. The Council was formed in secret, not to defend Terra, but to defend the galaxy from Terra. 6 species, none of them allies, each one old enough to remember the first Terran ascension and the collapse that followed. They call themselves the Veil-Bound Circle. Even among their own civilizations, their existence is considered conspiracy. They monitor Terra 24 hours a cycle, feed quantum signals through collapsing data meshes, not to learn, but to watch for movement. And movement comes rarely, but when it does, it echoes. One such movement occurred 73 cycles ago. An internal light flickered on Earth's dark side. A red latticework, like veins made of fractured code, appeared beneath the crust and then vanished. It lasted 0.2 seconds. 3 council members died of cerebral disintegration the moment the signal hit their encryption layers. The Veil-Bound made no public announcement. They upgraded the status from dormant to intermittent awareness. It remains unchanged. But now something has shifted, a new disturbance. Not from Terra itself, but from beyond. Someone or something has activated an ancient Terran relay. A ripple of pattern language, traced to an observatory on the Dravi homeworld. A voice the machines couldn't translate. A name, Kren. The Veil-Bound argue. Someone can tame it. Others suggest planetary sterilization. But the oldest among them, a Kalari exile named Vosterel, says nothing. He simply replays the last Terran transmission ever captured before the silence began. You thought fear would make us small. You thought isolation would make us forget. You thought memory could be erased. But we are not just memory. We are the consequence. We slept not to escape you, but to let you become arrogant. And now the silence ends. The file ends with a map, not of space, of thought. Coordinates rendered in neural patterning. Brainwave echoes. It shows where Terran mind architecture had been seeded across the galaxy. Terran logic buried in language. Terran instinct hidden in genetic drift. Terran weapons disguised as myth. When the child remembers, we return. Inside Terra's core, beneath oceans of pressure and artificial crust, the last war form flickers awake. Its body is no longer human. Not entirely. Its mind is not singular. It is networked. The voice of 1,000 sleepers stir behind its optics. They do not speak in unison. They do not chant. They remember. And remembrance, for Terrans, is activation. Above, orbiting at a distance, the rest of the galaxy now marks as a no-existence zone. Council Relay Number 12 detects a single pulse. No signal. No voice. Just a sound. A heartbeat. One. Then silence. But the sensor doesn't return to idle. It cracks, not from heat or pressure or overload, from age. It rusts instantly, as if it had waited 10,000 years to die, and finally got permission. Back at the veil-bound base, Terra rises from his seat. He removes his neural shield and whispers, "They're not coming back. They were always here." And in the dreaming dark beneath Terra's surface, something opens its eyes. Not to attack. Not yet. It has seen Kren. It has seen the councils. It has seen that the galaxy, even now, thinks it holds control. It smiles. They remember us as monsters. Let them. The event horizon holds the past. We are the future. Kren had never felt more alone. He floated in an unregistered escape pod between systems, darkened to avoid sensor pings. No food, no comms, just starlight and the warm, pulsing hum of the Terran toy tucked into the folds of his tunic, a toy that whispered in his dreams. And beneath his skin, something was changing, not pain, not illness. Something deeper, like memory waking up in a body not built to hold it. He accessed the stolen fragment again. The recording opened on a ruined room. Ash covered everything. Chairs, desks, ceiling beams scorched black. But the children still sat quietly, unblinking, in neat rows of strange metal stools arranged like petals around central dais. They weren't human anymore. They had been. Maybe. Once. But now, each child's skin shimmered faintly with thin layers of adaptive armor. Mechanical filaments pulsed in and out of their flesh like breathing veins. Their eyes, too wide, too deep, burned not with light, but with direction. And in front of them stood a man. A teacher. A Terran. Old, scarred, gaunt as a starved priest, but with a voice that resonated like steel drawn from the fire. "Today," he said, "we learn not of what they did to us." He paused, looking at each of them. "But what they'll forget." The camera stuttered, glitched, then stabilized. "The day will come when they deny it ever happened. When they speak of our extinction as mercy. When they call us anomaly, threat, myth." He walked slowly around the room. "They'll say they brought peace, that they had no choice, that we burned too brightly, flew too fast." He knelt before a child whose hands were not hands, but fractal tools, folding and refolding like puzzle boxes. "And that is the day we return." One child raised their hand. Kren froze. Their voice was calm, melodic, but too precise to be natural. "Return as what?" The teacher smiled. It wasn't a comforting smile. "As consequence." He turned to the rest. "What do we say when they ask who we are?" The children stood, in perfect synchrony, voices layered, harmonized by modulation, some still childish, others deepened into strange harmonic frequencies. "We are not vengeance. We are correction. We are memory with teeth." Kren flinched. The toy pulsed again. Faster, like a countdown. The video glitched. For a moment, it flickered to something new, a corridor of red light, lined with sarcophagi, each one marked with the Terran glyph, obsidian core. And one was open, not empty, open. Then the lesson resumed. The teacher raised one hand. A projection bloomed into the room, holographic constellations slowly collapsing into themselves. "This is the fall of the Fioran Empire." Another hand, a different galaxy, ships disintegrating before they could fire. The Pact of 31 Worlds, obliterated in 3 Terran minutes. "We did not start these wars," he said. "We only finished them." The children did not blink. But they called us arrogant, dangerous, untamed, and when we gave them peace, they demanded obedience. When we offered alliance, they imposed silence. When we bled for their wars, they made us disappear from the records. He turned back toward the camera, directly at Kren, though it had been recorded centuries ago. Still, he looked straight at him. "You, whoever you are, however you're seeing this. If the lesson survived, so did we." The projection shifted to Earth, not as Kren knew it, silent and veiled in static, but alive, orbiting ships shaped like burning wings. Mountains turned into reactors, oceans carved with fractal patterns visible from space. Earth had become something else, a vault, a warning, a home for things no longer bound by the flesh they were born in. The teacher's voice softened. They erased us from the stars. So we became what stars cannot forget. We became myth on purpose. We became quiet until quiet became fear. And fear, eventually, will become memory again. The children raised their hands again. Palms out. Metal. Glowing lines of data streamed down their arms. Protocol Echo is complete. We are ready. The teacher nodded. Then remember, when the stars forget what they did, remind them. The feed cut. Kren stared into darkness. And then the final message played, one not attached to the visual file. A voice not human. Older. Mechanical, but whispering. Like a god had learned to speak in code. Protocol Obelisk reactivated. Terran educational sequence embedded successfully. Receiver verified. Kren of Dravi. Cognitive imprint initiated. Kren's mind burned. Images poured into him. Not memories, but instructions. Coordinates. Technologies. Names never spoken. Warforms slumbering in the dark folds of planetary crusts. Symbols that rewrote what he was. The toy in his hand melted into light. Crawled up his arm like vines made of electricity. And then a voice. The teacher's again, gentler this time. We're not coming for revenge, child. We're coming for truth. You are the first. From somewhere deep in the void, 13 sleeping worlds blinked awake. Their skies rippled. And beneath forgotten tomb cities of Terran design, eyes opened in the dark. Watching, listening, waiting. Space has no sound. But in Kren's dreams, the stars whispered. Not in Dravi tongue. Not in any of the dozen galactic languages he'd studied. The words were older, sharper, spoken in the buried cadence of a dead world. And still, he understood them. He didn't know how. He only knew that when he closed his eyes, they came. Unit 721. Memory sync at 43%. Host neural tissue stable. Prepare for reconstitution. Each night, the voices grew clearer. Each morning, his reflection grew stranger. The first change was his eyes. He noticed it during a blackout jump, the moment when light bends through the window and hits the retina like a flare. His pupils no longer contracted. They split, trifold like aperture lenses, and mapped incoming radiation across the spectrum. He could see energy signatures now. Magnetic trails, cold halos around power cores, ghost shadows of AI transmissions that had faded hours earlier. Then his skin began to hum. Not buzz. Hum. A low, subdermal vibration when he passed through gravity wells. As if something inside him was scanning, adjusting, adapting. He thought he was dying, until the voices told him otherwise. Stabilization confirmed. Identity lock. Phase 3. We are still you. You are still us. He found an abandoned station near the edge of the Red Veil. That haunted region where Terran echoes supposedly warped navigation. No power. No atmosphere. But it welcomed him. Doors opened before he touched them. Lights flickered back to life. And deep within the maintenance shaft, a terminal awoke, screen bleeding with the same Terran glyphs from his dreams. He sat, and it spoke, in his own voice. Kren of Dravi. Designation, 721. Rebirth vessel. Welcome home. Kren stared in silence. The terminal played images, fractured, surreal. A warform standing amid fallen fleets, its arms burning with synthetic flame. A child clutching a twisted metal artifact beneath a glass sky. Cities folding into themselves like paper torn through time. All of it felt familiar. Not remembered. Recalled. Like he hadn't lived it, but had been it. He looked down at his hands. They trembled. What am I? He whispered. The machine answered without delay. You are memory. Planted. A Terran mind, reborn in alien shell. A seed. He tried to reject it. Tried to tell himself he was Dravi, peaceful, diplomatic, a child of quiet stars and harmonic architecture. But when he searched his childhood for comfort, he found gaps. Strange silences. A missing year. A skipped memory. A gap between the face of his mother and the smell of Dravi's soil. When he opened the Terran files embedded in his blood, yes, blood, they filled in the blanks. Kren had never been born. He had been activated. The Dravi child had never existed. There had only ever been Unit 721, a sleeper, hidden inside a carefully crafted mimic of Dravi biology. The skin was Dravi. The soul was Terran. More dreams followed, fevered, radiant. An ocean of black glass under a three-moon sky. A city without streets, only memory thread corridors that reassembled themselves based on thought patterns. And fire. Always fire. Not destruction, but cleansing, the kind that comes before evolution. He saw war forms awakening from undercrusts, speaking to each other in code, trading entire strategies through flickers of light in their optics. They were not angry. They were ready. Kren understood now why the voices kept whispering. They were not calling for vengeance. They were reminding him what came next. On the fourth cycle aboard the station, he no longer needed food. His cells metabolized static radiation. He didn't sleep in the usual sense either. He closed his eyes and stepped into something deeper, a dream architecture built across light years, a Terran psychic mesh network seeded long before Terra vanished from the grid. Each sleeper was a node. Each node remembered. And now they were waking. One voice stood out among the rest. Not like the others. Not directive. Not synthetic. Human. Familiar. 721. Do you remember the nursery? Kren choked. He did. It was impossible, but he did. Not a Dravi nursery. A Terran one. Metal walls humming with distant reactors. Holoscreens displaying blueprints instead of cartoons. A cradle that could analyze genetic drift and deploy correction nanites during sleep. He had laughed there. He had been there. We gave you the Dravi face, the voice said, because they were peaceful, untouched by the wars. They were kind. You needed that to survive long enough to grow. But now, it's time to be what you are. Kren stepped back from the terminal. He looked around the station. The empty walls, the rusted pipes. They felt less foreign now. Not because he belonged here, but because he had built this place. Or someone like him. A generation ago. Maybe two. He activated the station's final command queue. The system blinked red. Terran fail-safe protocol initiated. A beacon ignited at the station's apex. Not a signal, but a frequency. Low. Subsonic. Impossible to detect unless you knew what to listen for. But others did. All across the outer systems, sleeper units stirred. Not people. Not entirely. Hybrids. Fragments. Thoughts wearing borrowed skin. Some had served in governments. Others hid in slums. Others still had become part of the very species that once tried to wipe Terra from existence. But now they paused. They looked up, and they remembered. Back in the station, Kren stood before a mirror. He watched his face shift. Not deform. Not mutate. Just return. The eyes became clearer. The cheekbones sharper. Symbols etched faintly beneath the skin, visible only at certain angles. He was still Kren, but he was also something else. You're not a soldier, the voice said. Not yet. You're a memory that learned how to walk. The whispers continued as he launched the station's escape module. Destination, Earth. Real Earth. Not the veiled region everyone feared, but the real core, deep beneath the crust, where the obsidian vault waited. The whispers followed him. They whispered of plans, of timelines, of justice. He listened, and as he entered cryosleep, the final phrase echoed through the chamber, not from the ship, but from inside his own chest. A whisper not meant to be heard, but remembered. We were never gone. We became you. They had called it the unknown zone for so long. It became instinct. No nav paths, no supply routes, no diplomatic postings. Terra had become a myth. A blank sector on every star map. A silence agreed upon by fearful minds. But fear was never protection. It was just permission. And now, the silence had ended. It began with a whisper on every galactic channel. Not a broadcast. A statement. Spoken in hundreds of extinct dialects. Unified in tone. We were forgotten. We forgive nothing. Across the Lauren drift, a freighter exploded mid-jump. Not from sabotage or impact, but from the sudden awakening of its own captain. Sleeper designation 221K. Human origin neural pattern. Activated. He killed no one, but he took control. Steered the ship into a system no longer marked on any galactic atlas. He called it home. On Verna's Prime, a diplomat fell silent during a peace negotiation, his eyes glowing with golden filaments. His voice changed. He stood. He spoke no threats, only a message. Prepare for balance. Terra remembers the debt. In the Dravi archives, Kren's name appeared, not as a citizen, as a trigger. His awakening had been the signal. The first planetary network to shut down was the Centauri core grid. Not through hacking, not through weapons, but by internal access, old code buried in the infrastructure from centuries past. Protocols labeled Legacy Override. One by one, systems fell dark. Civilian transit halted. Terraformers reversed. Defense satellites blinked offline, then retargeted their own command centers. By the time the galactic governments noticed, thousands of their systems were already under quiet Terran control, and not a single Terran warship had fired a shot. On Uran, 4, a colony governor screamed as his planetary weather control system played a children's lullaby from Earth's pre-collapse era. The clouds above his city arranged themselves into patterns. Not random. Letters. Old Terran Latin. Phase 1 complete. Then came the real shift. Every galactic map updated itself simultaneously. No authorization. No transmission. As if reality itself had been waiting for this. Where once Terra's location was listed as unknown zone or off-limits, now a new designation burned across the stars. Origin point. Retaliation phase active. It pulsed with a black gold icon. Coordinates absolute. Unhidden. Unafraid. The galaxy stared. And Terra stared back. Vaker Loth, once a silent observer of the Threx Dominion, watched his star charts fold and bend like digital paper caught in a windstorm. The star systems surrounding Terra began to dim, not in brightness, but in presence. Scanners failed to read them. Jump gates rerouted away from them. It was as if Terra's region had become aware and was choosing what to allow in. He didn't speak. He only stood and whispered. It wasn't death. It was incubation. Meanwhile, the obsidian vaults under Earth's surface cracked open. Not with violence, with precision. Each vault housed a purpose. One filled with biological warfare that could think. One filled with time-shift weapons that operated in reverse chronology. One filled with libraries, not of books, but of sins, the records of every atrocity committed by galactic empires, hidden even from their own histories. And one, the last, held names. Of every species that had lifted a weapon against Terra. Beside each, a status bar. Each bar began to fill. The Vraxi swarm queen screamed into the void. Not in rage. In fear. She had seen the Terran war forms once. Thought it a hallucination. A myth passed down genetically through the swarm's old blood. But it was real. They were real. And they had smiled. Now, every time the word human was spoken in the swarm net, a wave of instinctual terror rippled through the hive. They could no longer say the word without breaking formation. They had forgotten what hunted them. Now they remembered. On the border world of Kaleen Ost, a child stood in the middle of a market as lights flickered and machines shut down. He looked no different than others, but his eyes were old. Too old. He looked skyward, opened his mouth, and dozens of nearby Terran sleepers awoke in sync. Vendors collapsed, screaming. Security bots turned on their owners. In less than 6 minutes, the world belonged to Terra. No army, just memory reawakened. The Galactic Council convened in emergency. Their encryption protocols failed. Their translators reverted to Terran Standard. Their diplomatic AI began quoting ancient human philosophers. In the central chamber, a single projection appeared. An Earth, gray, obsidian, radiant with quiet fire. A voice followed. You erased us from your maps. You censored your archives. You turned our graves into legends. We turned your fear into code. Now you remember. On the edge of the Orion spindle, where rogue systems floated lawless and forgotten, 7 massive constructs shimmered into view. Black obelisks with planetary mass. Each radiated a field that disabled faster-than-light travel for hundreds of light years. Each bore a single glowing sigil. Witness. Then, Terran ships emerged. Not from slipstreams, not from docks, from nowhere, materializing from folded pockets of space-time, born of the physics other species had only dreamed of. And these ships didn't broadcast warnings. They listened to every lie ever told about humanity, to every war justified in the name of peace. And they remembered. Kren stood aboard one of them. No longer Kren. Unit 721. Memory. Judgment. Voice. He looked out at the stars and smiled. Not in victory, but in fulfillment. This was not revenge. This was reckoning. Behind him, thousands of others like him awoke. Not soldiers, not killers. Reminders. Living proof that Terra had never fallen. It had only been waiting. The final message broadcast from every star system simultaneously. You studied our silence. You mocked our peace. You taught us what you feared. Now live with what you created. We are Terra's children. We do not forget. And we are no longer asleep. Across the stars, as entire species trembled beneath skies they no longer controlled, the maps of the galaxy updated once more. No borders, no empires, just a line drawn from Earth outward, not in conquest, in memory. And beneath it, a phrase that would become the warning engraved on every newborn civilization's code of survival. Do not wake the sleepers.